How is my audio compared to Clay's on here? I'm using a new microphone, and I'm trying to.
Okay,
Okay, good.
guys, try to refresh and see if that made the YouTube go live. And apologies to those of you that may have missed the first 30 minutes of me and Jimmy singing "The Will and the Will of the Fly Keeps on Burning." But welcome to
Wheel in
the
the fly keeps on burning.
yeah. So anybody that might have missed the first little bit of the show there. Hopefully we're live and it'll be recorded on YouTube going forward. I'm not really sure what the holdup was there, but yeah, if anybody can give me some confirmation of whether or not that stream went live, that would be appreciated. But yeah.
YouTube flagged us for crypto.
Oh, did it? Like
I
it
know.
wouldn't surprise me.
They deleted YouTube deleted like the Bad Crypto podcast. They had a bunch of content years ago, and they just got flagged and deleted for no reason, no explanation, demonetized. It took them like 2 years to resolve that, and there was never like a reason given, except that the only thing they could think of was they were crypto.
Weird. Interesting. It
Yeah.
says it should be live, guys. So I guess worst case scenario, we're doing a Discord show for you guys, but yeah, I don't know why it wouldn't be live. It literally says it's live right here on my screen.
Ooh,
Oh, okay, so
nice.
it is
We,
live. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I guess technical difficulties. Still it's a learning curve. It's funny, Jimmy. I actually did used to do a podcast. I did a podcast for like 3 years, and then YouTube started randomly deleting my or like randomly flagging my episodes, and I just
what
pulled
was the
everything.
content?
Uh,
What
it,
was the
it was
content?
it was mostly philosophy, but it kind of got into some political stuff on occasion, and unless you're beating the mainstream narrative, people aren't you know always super accepting of what you have to say. So
Right.
it is what it is. But it's something that I've always been mindful of when dealing with YouTube nowadays. Is it's their platform, and you're just living in it.
Yeah, that's basically it. My wife was actually looking at some numbers for monetizing YouTube and how much people make per average per view and stuff, and it gets pretty crazy. You can make a lot of money if you get a couple 100,000 people interacting with you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think just for the recap purposes of what we already went over for since it wasn't being recorded. One update for everybody is that the BUSD deck pool is migrating to a deck USDC pool on PancakeSwap. So we just got the announcement that it's going to be moved over today. I've been poking the team to kind of like make that shift since I think it's 2 weeks now until they're completely ending support. I thought it was like January that they were supposed to end support, and then I heard into December, and then I looked today, and it was like 2 weeks until they're ending support, and I'm like, okay, this keeps getting shorter every time I look, or unless I'm just misunderstanding the situation. But it sounds like a good time to not be holding BUSD.
Yeah, it sure does. Um, so yeah, with going to liquidity pools, since we are discussing such things, DAO, or sorry, DEC pools. Is it beneficial to have DEC pools besides SPS DEC? I almost feel like that should be the only one, and everything else should be an SPS
so,
on ramp.
so I'll tell you, like that's been my mentality for the longest time. Is we should not be basically paying people to circumvent the burn mechanic of SPS. Like whether or not those pools want to exist. I actually think that those pools are profitable enough to exist without SPS incentives. But there's going to obviously be differing opinions on that. But
Yeah, well, we've only got a couple more years of that anyway. It was in the white paper. Obviously, things can change, but that was part of the planned distribution, and it won't be going on forever.
So I'm gonna actually like give you guys a little update on this. Like in my deep dive, like and like diving into all of the current liquidity pools and what we're paying out. we're less than 50% of target. So I'm actually not super concerned with how much inflation we're paying out. If anything, I think we need to just be like reorganizing and making sure that the pools that we are paying inflation to are priority pools. Like it's things that are adding value. Now, I've had the concern raised, and I think this is also Matt's concern from what I've gathered, that if we pull the incentives from the deck pools, it could basically force a lot of deck that is currently tied up in those pools back onto the
Ah,
market.
right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and also I've talked to some whales that are more concerned about, if we start opening up, the deck liquidity pools on land, and then we don't have the pools to get back out, like they don't want to feel trapped holding deck. So, I've been listening to concerns on both sides, and in general, like I still, on some level, have the same mentality. But, I think it's a more complex issue than I originally thought. And, the one thing that I am still, like, pretty adamant on is we should be opening new polls, right? Like, I think, like, what we should be doing is, like, I've been saying we need a Matic poll for the longest time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like I've been looking into like different options. We have a discussion thread open for this right now. If you guys have like different liquidity pools or sites like that that you think that it's worth like my time to look into, like definitely drop your suggestions in there. But like one of the things that I think would benefit us is maybe getting a perpetuals pool open. And I had somebody that thought I was just throwing out buzzwords. Let me explain what a perpetuals pool is to you. It's basically the easiest way to sum it up is it's decentralized leverage trading. And look, like that, like that's not an everybody thing. Like I don't personally like leverage trading, but again, like if if it makes sense to have a pool to allow people to do the thing they want to do, and that's one of the reasons why people are always like, win Binance and, like win these big exchanges, because you can do leverage trading on them. So, something like looking into like maybe like Curve Finance, or, maybe like looking into G Trade and just trying to see like, do we have any options to maybe open up different types of pools? One,
Random idea. Oh, sorry, but
yeah,
random idea here. And this was just based on, again, the goal of a part of the goal of the game, besides having a cool game, is onboarding people. Would Dogecoin be a good pool? Because I mean, it's a what bouncing in and out of the top 10 cryptos all the time. A ton of people use it. I personally don't, but just had that idea. Would a Dogecoin SPS pool be beneficial as we bring in new players?
one of the things I've gotten, multiple requests for is the idea of getting a Bitcoin SPS pool going.
Oh
And,
yeah,
so if we wanted to do something like that, we'd have to look at a couple of different options. Technically, we could do like a swap BTC SPS pool on tribal decks. We could, probably do like a. It's not ideal. Like you'd have to do like a wrapped BTC pool, or like any way you do it, it has to be wrapped, because there's just. I mean, maybe something with Thor chain. If you wanted to try to. Yeah, it's complicated whenever you start getting into like different chains interacting with each other. It's one of the things. A lot of people don't even realize SPS is a BSC token, right? Like so, like
right, right.
I've had people talk about building bridges from tribal decks to Matic, and I'm like, that's like a wrapped token. You don't really want to
Well, the
go that
wrap thing
route.
is it's pretty easy on tribal decks. I mean, you don't even have to think about it. You send your Bitcoin, it shows up on tribal decks as wrapped Bitcoin. You send it off, it shows up at the, destination wallet as normal Bitcoin again.
Right. I'm saying like you wouldn't want to take like technically SPS on tribal decks is essentially like a wrap token, right? So like you wouldn't want to take the SPS off tribal decks and then bridge it to Matic, well, at least in my opinion, because what you'd have then is like a wrap to wrap token. What you'd want to do is bridge it from BSC to Matic or something like that, so that way you're only wrapping it once. To address Azercon's question here, yeah, so actually this is something that I started looking into You guys may not know. I've worked with a lot of the Tribal Dex guys, a lot of the Hive Engine guys for years, so I'm pretty familiar with them. I'm pretty familiar with the system. Um, I actually started talking to some devs about like what it would cost to get some nodes, some basically like some Hive Engine nodes that are not public API endpoints. Like what we would want is private API endpoints so that Splinterlands could not be reliant on these nodes that are getting attacked. And also, we could theoretically, like we could run a private Tribal Dex node just to make our bridging smoother. You know what I'm saying? Like make our experience, even if it's not like the entire Hive Engine ecosystem experience, we could make our transitions between in-game to Tribal Decks and back and forth much smoother by having some basically private APIs. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's not like super in the spirit of crypto and Web3 to have all these private API endpoints, but it's something that you pretty much have to get to anytime a chain or like platform starts getting successful. This actually is something that like I had noticed with Wax. I've had to work with Wax over the years, and it's finding public API access on Wax has always been a struggle. Like what'll happen is like I'll find one that works, and then they end up timing you out after like so many requests, or they end up blocking your IP. And yeah, so like essentially, unless you're running your own node, you're kind of like at the mercy of what other people will and won't allow you to do. And whenever you're like running on these public nodes, like what's happening with Tribal Decks right now, like so, like we don't know hands down who is doing what, but like we do know that the nodes are being attacked. So what you can do is basically you can have those public nodes and let them, be the filter for all these like stupid DDoS attacks and all that crap. And you can have private nodes that just keep on trucking, even though, the public nodes are kind of like getting bogged down and aren't as usable or aren't as stable. So as reliant as we are on like the Hive Engine slash Tribal Dex ecosystem, I think it would make a lot of sense for the DAO, even if it's like I don't know. I did some rough numbers, and I'm thinking like it may cost us like $1,000 a month to run 3 nodes. Like, and 3 nodes would give us plenty of redundancy. It's something like I'm still kind of like in early talks about. I think I have a dev that we can use to do this. But yeah, again, like I'm just still kind of like gathering info and filling it out before I get a like a draft together of whether or not we want to fund this. But it's definitely of my opinion, just to answer, I guess the overall theme here of what Azarkan was talking about. It's definitely my opinion we need to do something to fix the stability of our bridges there, and that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. Anything to help stabilize the network like that would be. I mean, that's our lifeblood right there.
Yeah, eco. It's not like a hard thing. It's more just like getting enough server capacity up. I'm pretty sure I have somebody that can do it that we can trust. And like I said, $1,000 for 3 full nodes that are like the equivalent of the Hive Engine like main node, right? Like so, if we wanted to run 3 nodes that are like that robust and that scalable, we could do that on like roughly $1,000 a month. Now that's just server cost. I don't know what we would have to pay like a dev to actually do the thing, but yeah, I mean, again, like if we can find cheaper options, like I'm all for it. Like I'm just been kind of like poking around of what we need for. Like I'm talking about like robust, robust servers here, Eco. I'm not talking about just like running light nodes or something like that. I'm talking like full on like full on like full Hive Engine nodes. So we'll see, but that's kind of like where my early exploration has gone.
And those would still be maintained after the SPS validator nodes go live, I'd imagine, right? Like that's a different thing
Yeah.
completely.
This would basically be us taking like so Hive Engine is basically its own layer 2 chain at this point. It has like a witness system. It has multiple like open source developments. It's become a pretty big thing. But yeah, like it's not like that complicated to run to like run their nodes. But to get a node that can handle the bandwidth that like the Splinterlands puts through those APIs, and to have the redundancy, I mean, you could probably just run one if you wanted to for like 300 something bucks a month, but like you want redundancy to hopefully stop having these like same problems all the time. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like I was kind of like looking for what would it take to get like a robust solution in place, and yeah, just if you want like rock solid servers that are ready to go, like that's about what it costs. Is like 350 a month. It really depends on where you go, who you use, and yeah, like if you want like fail-safes in place and redundancy, you need multiple. And I talked to a few different devs, and they were like, three would probably be making sure you're like as rock solid as you can be. So that's basically like where my mentality's at and what I've been trying to scope out. But again, like this isn't like me going make a business deal. This is me gathering information, and then like I would make a draft to bring it to the DAO, and we could discuss it.
Yeah, I think that would be a very smart thing to do. Help stabilize the whole tribal decks and Hive thing.
Yeah, yeah, and no, like eco, you can definitely get like some dirt cheap servers, but I think the problem is dirt cheap servers that are like running light nodes and crap are exactly why it's not stable enough right now. Yeah, like if we want like full like rock solid, not have to worry about this crap all the time, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive than like $40 a month. But yeah, that said, like I'm talking about going like full on like probably as close to like overkill as you can go without it being overkill. Because you got to remember, guys, like we're talking about like getting rock solid performance right now. Like what if we go into full on bull season and we start having like 10, 20, 30x the amount of transactions going back and forth between Splinterlands and tribal decks? It's we want to be ready for growth, not just like maintaining what we've got with like the minimal cost. Like at some point, you just gotta do the math. Like even if it costs us like $1,000 a month, is $12,000 a year to have rock solid bridges between the game and tribal decks worth it? I mean, that's where all of our high volume pools are. It's where most of our DeFi activity happens. It's just
Oh yeah,
common sense to me.
yeah. It just seems like it would be a necessity. Not even just something to consider not having at this point. Does the game itself run any Hive nodes? The company, Splinterlands?
I'm pretty sure they run Hive nodes, but I don't think they run any Hive engine nodes. And yeah, I've reached out to Rishi. Rishi is not interested in taking this on, Eco. So um, yeah, for what that's worth. Like I said, though, I've talked to probably like 5 devs at this point that I know personally and like have worked with for years in the Hive ecosystem. Most of them just have too much on their plate, but I think we have an option. I'm finishing, fleshing that out, but yeah, I think we've got some options there. So I will once I get something more firmed up, I'll share it with you guys, and we can decide whether or not we want to fund it. But so to tie back into LPs, this is something that Jimmy was touching on a minute ago. But I want you guys to really start thinking about like what chains do we want to expand to? Arbitrum is blowing up. It's a chain that like I've been kind of out of the loop with because I've been pretty busy like with Splinterlands and SPS stuff. But Arbitrum's blowing up. Looks like Matic's doing pretty well these days. Like where do we want to go? Like what do we want to do to expand and like open up into different different Web3 ecosystems? Like I said, one of the things I guess we probably touched on before the recording started, since technical difficulties. I put out a draft proposal suggestion about whether or not we want to maybe consider doing a game jam to try to bring in some third-party developers from around the Web3 space. We've got options. Like we've got things we can do as a DAO to basically harden and bring in more people to our ecosystem that I think we can do with minimal cost. And a lot of these things will just pay dividends because they're like they beef up our infrastructure, right? Like something with tightening up our bridges to tribal nicks. Like that's just common sense to me. Like we don't want to we don't want to have people coming in the game and they're being like, I tried to transfer a deck to Hive Engine and it's been like 8 hours and I can't get a response and whatever. It's like we want to minimize all of that crap. Like we should be able to do that ourselves fairly easily. And I think that like if we start taking more ownership, like if we start like doing our own things as far as like reaching out and like doing a game jam to attract new developers into the ecosystem, it gives us potential to expand, not necessarily just deeper with the Splinterlands company, but like in the Web3 space in general, right? Like we can start making partnerships. We can start getting new projects that use our NFTs, use our stake, and aren't just 100% tied to Splinterlands, right? I mean, Splinterlands has been through 2 rounds of layoffs. I think the company's in a lot better position now than it was. They have a lot lower cost. They are bringing in money now with the Rebellion pack sale. But again, like I think it points out that being too centralized with only one company and only like one place to use these NFTs and like one place for your stake to be relevant, like it makes more sense for us to start looking into like how do we branch out, right? Like can we have developers from around the Web3 space that want to come in and do something like like maybe they build like an idle dungeon game, right? Where they take like they take the Splinterlands cards and you build a team and it just does like one of those idle dungeon things. Like it's not really my game mode, but people like that stuff. Or like tower defense, right? We're still kind of like waiting for that one to pan out, but
I can't wait. I can't wait for that. No, I think
yeah,
this whole thing it's a good idea for for us to really kind of, even if it's in the back end behind the scenes, like with the tribal dex bridges and stuff, but really to kind of have the back of the company when they need it. Like not just one set of eyes looking out for everyone, but 2 sets of eyes.
Cardano. Does Cardano still exist? Like I'm like I saw Solana was mentioned too. Again, like I feel like that's one of the things with Splinterlands is so many of us are just like kind of in our own little world here, right? Because Hive is so isolated from a lot of the Web3 space. But
Yeah, especially during
yeah,
bears, you look inward as opposed to outward.
yeah,
I know when bulls are going on, I'm learning about a lot more new projects on a daily basis. Um,
yeah.
oh, something else you had brought up was you mentioned wanting to discuss was the crypto.com thing.
Yeah. We should probably talk about that. So if you guys are still like somehow unaware, because I've been trying to do my best to just make sure that we're all on the same page, we do not have a market maker, and we will pretty much lose our centralized exchanges one by one. Um, you know, if we don't like see massive changes or get market makers to shore them up. We're currently in the process of being delisted on Huobi. I got the notice from them like a week or so ago, so I don't know exactly when their next round of delisting is, but SPS should probably no longer be on the HTX platform or whatever they're calling it these days. Our current like biggest exchange that we have is probably crypto.com, and we do not have a market maker on it. We were having the discussion about whether or not we wanted to try to run another proposal for only crypto.com market making. Flowdesk is willing to work with us if we want to proceed with just like having one market. That said, I don't know. Like the last proposal failed so overwhelmingly that like I'm hesitant to run a community proposal for it because like I paid for the last one out of my own pocket and out of my own sense of like duty to bring it to you guys' attention. But that said, like you guys got to tell me you want this for me to be able to run another proposal for it. And if you don't, that's fine. Like maybe we start looking more into DeFi. Maybe we start trying to figure out new liquidity pools. But yeah, I want to make it clear. Like we are going to lose decentralized exchanges. I've been trying to say that as bluntly as I can. Um, so to answer Ryan's question there, I actually did a Twitter space. If somebody wants to go find it, it's like one of the earlier Twitter spaces on the SPS DAO Twitter. Um, to kind of just like it's an interview with me and Flowdesk to answer a lot of these like basic questions like that about like what does a market maker do. But on a high level, like a market maker like Flowdesk is what I call like an arbitrage market maker. So what they'll do is they'll take I don't have the KPIs off the top of my head, but like let's say we lend them like $40,000 in liquidity, they'll keep X amount on the order books on Crypto.com. They'll keep X amount like on pancakes, well, like on BSC to utilize a pancake swap. And what they'll do is they'll do their best to like maintain a really tight spread on Crypto.com, and they'll make sure that there's enough liquidity so that people can go in and buy more than like a couple $100 at a time without drastically impacting the price. So that's one of the problems we have with Crypto.com, right? Is there's not liquidity there. So even if you want to go there and you want to buy and you want to start increasing the volume, you just can't because there's no liquidity. So whenever you have a market maker, they keep a lot tighter spreads, and what'll happen is basically like somebody goes there, right? Like let's say you want to go to Crypto.com and buy $5,000 worth of SPS. They would have the order books tight enough there for you to go do that without major price impact. And then what they'll do is they'll use the other tokens that they have in reserve to basically counteract that trade to make sure that they're maintaining the same level of, like SPS and stables to keep that pair consistent instead of, like some market makers that do like a lending based fee. Like what they'll do is I'm just going to tell you guys, I don't really like the whole idea of lending-based market makers because they're kind of incentivized to play with your token to make money. But so basically, what'll happen with a company like Flowdesk is they're constantly like, say you buy $5,000 worth of SPS on Crypto.com, they're like basically buying another $5,000 worth of SPS on Pancake, and then they're moving it into Crypto.com so that way they maintain, and they're constantly like polling price action to make sure that they're holding a really tight spread so that like they're not trading to make money. Like just to be clear, like what they're doing is like they're making sure that they keep your your liquidity basically stable to within like where the market is currently at, right? So like let's say they have like $10,000 worth of liquidity on Crypto.com at 2 cents, right? And let's say the price starts going up to like 2.1, 2.2. What they're going to do is they're going to constantly keep like repegging that liquidity to the current market value, and that way it makes it easy for people to come in and buy SPS and then sell SPS without having to worry about major price impact.
Yeah, I really like the whole Crypto.com platform. I've been involved in for, gosh, 3 years now, 2, 3 years, 4 years, a while. But it's just been. I think they're really well positioned and uniquely positioned among what we're calling centralized exchanges because they're a bank. They work with legitimate banks. They're in the SWIFT system. Um, when we see things like Binance and what's happening right now, we've seen so many of these giants just topple due to maybe regulatory issues or scam issues, fraud. The crypto.com is, while, crypto people tend to be against the centralized thing, it is something we have to work with. Mass adoption has not happened yet. We're moving towards it. Crypto.com seems to be so uniquely positioned to facilitate the adoption. They make using crypto, buying crypto, and converting to fiat incredibly easy. You do it all with the click of a button. I don't know. I've just watched them grow from this relatively small company, and their marketing is great. Their goal is great. They're constantly adding new tokens to their platform. They're just growing and growing and growing. It just seems like the perfect place for us to be sitting for when the next bull hits.
Yeah, and so just to kind of touch on what I think Jedi Elf was asking there. Um, the way leverage trading works is basically you'll have people lending out SPS on the platform, and then what happens is people will put up collateral, like say you have something like DAI or whatever the platform uses for collateral. They'll put that up, and let's say they have like $10,000 worth of DAI, and they want to like leverage trade something like SPS at like I'm just kind of giving like a simple breakdown here. Let's say they want to do like a 3x leverage trade with SPS, right? So what would happen is they would put like $10,000 worth of whatever token, into basically an escrow account, and then they would borrow like 3x the amount of SPS. And then what happens is if they get underwater, right? Like let's say like the price of SPS starts going down, they can basically get margin called, and they will like lose their liquidity to, or like whatever they put up as collateral, they would lose that to buy back the position that they've been exposed to, right? Yeah, it's like this is all like very like a kind of like simple breakdown of it, but essentially that's what it is. Like you put funds into escrow, you get tokens for whatever that rate is, and then if it goes up, you get like whatever magnification increase or whatever magnification decrease, and your collateral is what is exposed. So yeah, like it has nothing to do with Splinterlands. It's basically just different DeFi platforms have different types of pools. If you use something like even if you go like on Binance, like I think Binance has most of their tokens have like some small margin trading capabilities. Even if it's just like 2 or 3x or something. Yeah, like it essentially creates a new use case for lending SPS, and it attracts I guess the types of people that like to play around with margin trading. I don't know, it's not really my thing, but that's about the best Eli 5 I can give on that topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
so as we're kind of, I did get feedback, and it seems like in general, like there are people like some of those big no votes were willing to change for running one market maker. I've been holding off just because so many people seem to think that we push too many proposals out, but I can go ahead and run it since we technically got the go ahead through the community discussions before it timed out. Like I said, I don't know. I feel hesitant seeing how overwhelmingly badly the last one failed. I just don't want to waste a proposal that the DAO is going to have to pay for. But that said, there did seem to be at least some tone shift in running the one contract, and yeah, I mean, like I'm not the biggest fan of centralized exchanges personally, but I do think that it would possibly be a mistake to leave ourselves with none. And especially one
Yeah.
that's as easy to
I
use
think we
as
need at least
CDC.
one. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, they're so accessible, they're so easy to use, and they're just, I mean, they're aggressively marketing. I mean, they bought the naming rights to the LA Lakers arena that they play basketball in. That's now the Crypto.com arena. They bought that for 20 years. So
Okay,
I
so
think we're
so that
about two
is
years
still
in.
happening. Like I
Oh,
was
they did
wondering
it
about that.
before
Okay.
yeah, they did it before. It was like a year or two ago. That's a done deal. Um, so that's going to be the Crypto.com arena for like the next 18 or 19 years. These guys, they're pushing. They're definitely really, I think, positioned to be one of the biggest centralized exchanges in the world, as we see all these private and again, it's mostly because of their connection and involvement with the legitimate banking system, and that's always been one of the hardest hurdles to get over with when we're talking about crypto adaption is that separation of banking and crypto. Obviously that's what we want as crypto people, but the reality is the grip the banking system has on the global economy. They need to be involved, especially if we want people to get in. to crypto. People trust banks. People don't trust banks, but people trust banks. It's a weird little catch-22 there.
Well, Jimmy, one thing I want to touch on here, and I think this kind of ties in with the earlier question or the earlier conversation about how we didn't really give Nifty a chance to succeed. I think we did the same thing with a lot of these exchange listings, right? Um, and like I can tell you guys, these exchange listings are not cheap, and like one of the reasons why I've been so adamant that we shouldn't be pursuing anymore is because we're not supporting the ones that we have. Um, like look, like I don't know how else to spell this out. You're never going to get on an exchange like Binance and not have a market maker. Like it just doesn't happen. Like like these exchanges, they require you to have a market maker to make sure that like liquidity levels and volume are maintained. Like that's for lack of a better word, that's literally all these exchanges care about. Like, do you have liquidity? Do you have volume? If yes, cool. Like, you can stay. If you don't, then get out. Like, you're not worth the time on their order books. You're not worth the any potential like security vulnerabilities, anything like that. That's why like these exchanges generally only care about if they're making money, because that's really the only value you can bring to them. Like that's I'm just trying to give you guys the headspace of like what like as somebody that's interacted with probably like 10 to 20 of these different exchanges at this point. Like it all boils down to that. Some of them are a little bit better. Some of them care a little bit more about the crypto industry as a whole. Like one of the ones that I got to, man, it's crazy because there's so many like NDAs. Like I can tell you, let me word things like this. I will tell you, Crypto.com and Kraken are probably two of the best exchanges, in my opinion. Just from like the way they operate and how they go about like their listing procedures and things like that. Those are the types of companies that like I personally would like to work with, right? And it's just because they aren't like looking for pay us millions of dollars to list your token. Like these are two exchanges that don't actually take money to list on their platform. What they will do though is like with something like crypto.com, they usually like require like some kind of like marketing thing or whatever, where if you guys remember when we listed with crypto.com, there was like a big trading like a big trading thing that happened where there was like a lot of tokens up for grabs. Trading contest is usually what they call it or something. But yeah, like these are exchanges that aren't looking for you to just like bribe them with money to get your tokens listed. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of this stuff works. So, just to kind of give you guys like as much transparency as I possibly can here. Yeah, like I said, Azurcon, I will run it with just the one option, and I'm still in touch with like I still have all the contacts for speaking with Flowdesk, so if it passes, I can get it set up. But
And
yeah.
no, those guys are the crypto.com also they're bending over backwards to work with the United States. So many of these exchanges, we're at such a disadvantage in the US because all of the like Binance, they were just like, here's a big middle finger. The rest of the world can use, Binance, and the US gets this extremely limited platform to interact with. Crypto.com has gone out of their way to basically work with U.S. Banks, with regulators and such. Recently, they switched. You have an actual bank account when you have a Crypto.com card. It used to be in a Gibraltar-based bank, Metropolitan Commercial, and recently, in order to work with the United States, they moved all of the U.S. accounts to U.S. banks. It's now I forget the name, like Community Federal. It's something. It's a New York bank. My account was moved. They did it. I don't have to do a darn thing except to reattach my debit, my Wells Fargo account to my Crypto.com account, and they did the whole thing automatically with a New York-based bank. So they're really working towards making things happen, with crypto and fiat.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something Dave's saying there. Dave, like we actually, like that's something I actually pressed them on. If like on the Twitter space, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Like I can't tell you that having a market maker doesn't create like some volume. The liquidity is not artificial. Like we literally have to give them the liquidity to trade. Now it will basically it will like on some level increase the volume on the pancake swap pool if they're arbitrage trading, but like the whole thing is to be able to keep a really tight spread on the exchange so that people can trade, right? And that's what I mean when it's like a little bit of a chicken and egg situation here, right? Because like if the liquidity's not there, people can't trade. Like they, well, at least not like at any kind of like reasonable level. Like if you go try to buy like probably $500 right now on crypto.com, you're gonna move the price to where it's just ridiculous. Um, so it's, yeah, it's not like perfect having to use market makers, but yeah, all of these centralized exchanges, you're gonna have to have a market maker. It's not like a question of how much, unless you're like literally Bitcoin or Ethereum, you have to have a market maker. I don't know how else to put it. Like it's like it's not an optional thing, because there's just not enough organic liquidity or volume to basically be able to keep the exchange listing open. And again, like I said, I'm not here to tell you guys we have to do this or whatever. I'm just telling you, like, this is how it works. Like, you're not going to get on Binance, you're not going to get on Coinbase. There is no exchange in the world that is going to list SPS and not make us have a market maker. Like, at some point, they're just going to say, like, look, like you're going to get delisted. Even
I'm
the
shocked
ones.
those guys even found us. Like they just listed SPS, didn't they? At one point, they
Um,
came to us.
So the ones that have just like listed us without, I think, like any action on our sides are CoinEx, Mexi, and Gate. And yeah, like I don't know if those sites have their own like internal market making or something, because I've always tried to like kind of like figure out how that works with those sites, but my guess is they run their own like internal market making bots or something. But hey, like, if they can keep liquidity and it's profitable for them to keep SPS on there and keep tight liquidity spreads by their own actions, that's awesome. It'd be cool if more exchanges did that. But yeah, like anything like HTX, Crypto.com, Coinbase, Wobi, all of these have like massive market makers behind them.
Yeah,
And
They're-
we had a really good for a long time we had a really good lending based market maker for SPS, but whenever the last bear market was really like kind of starting to kick down, like they stopped doing anything, and I was
they
just fighting.
lost interest.
Yeah, like I had to fight them for months to get our tokens back. So like this is what I'm saying. Like, sure, you can try to find somebody that'll just do it for free, but again,
Yeah,
this is what I'm telling you. Like whenever you're using these lending-based market makers, they literally have incentive to just mess with the price of your token, right? Because they're holding millions of dollars worth of your token, just like in escrow to keep liquidity on exchanges. It benefits them to basically manipulate the price of your token and trade it for a profit. Like
well,
but most people think like spending money on a market maker seems like a problem, but I'm telling you, like the ones that you don't spend the money on are a bigger problem, at least in my
no.
opinion.
And here's Azure Khan showing swing votes from the last
Yeah.
exchange vote thing, saying it looks like it should pass
So,
if
well,
it's put up again.
here's the problem. Azurcon, and like look, like I actually did these numbers because I was I talked to some of the big holders. Neoxian's one of the ones that said he would actually switch to. I do think that we can get like some significant like people changing their opinion at the top, but like even what you're just pointing out there, like they get you to 50-50. Like this overwhelmingly failed. It's the second lowest failing proposal of all time. So that's why I said like I'm hesitant, but if we want to try to run this thing with one, we can try running it with just one to keep the CDC listing. But yeah,
I think it's just important enough to consider, and to see what the situation is, or what
well,
the temperature is.
Well, and one of the reasons why I felt strongly enough that we all need to have a say in this, that like I literally paid for the proposal out of pocket, is because I know we're on a timer with these exchanges. And before before that first one even failed, we like I got the notice that we're getting delisted from Huobi/HTX. So again, like I think that one's probably too late. I think we're doing all right on Gate. at this point that I think we can probably kind of like ride that out for a little bit without a market maker. But yeah, Crypto.com is literally a matter of time. They've already cut us down to one pair instead of two. If, like I said, if we want to
Yeah,
keep it,
Bitcoin and Tether, I think, are the two.
right. So we lost our USDT pair, but we basically we should still be in their wallet because we're like on the USD SPS pair. But yeah, again, like there's no liquidity.
Right, right. Yeah. What am I? If I want to sell my SPS there, I could sell into Bitcoin or Tether or USD coin.
Yeah, I don't know,
Interesting.
but yeah, it looks like I don't know. It looks like there's
Run
demand
it
to
right.
at least run it with just the one. So I'll throw it out there later. You know, I'll get it put together, and we'll have a vote for whether or not we want to try to run one market maker. But yeah, guys, look, like all I'm saying is we just need to be aware. Like if we want to do this, like we have to vote it into place and get it set up. If we don't want to do this, I just want to make sure everybody fully understands the repercussions, right? Like you're gonna get delisted, right? Like it's not really a question of if, it's just a question of when. And you know, again, like my main thing is I want this to be a DAO decision. I don't want this to be something that just gets decided for you because I didn't make you aware of it, or you know, something like that. That's like I said, that's why I feel so adamant about just raising this issue and getting people to hear it. Is I don't want this to end up where we have no centralized exchange listings and you know people are just like, oh, why didn't we do anything? Well, hey, look, I'm gonna nag you about it until we're delisted from all of them. So you know, consider that me telling you if you want to do something about it, you better start like banging some pots and pans together and yelling at the top of your lungs to get the rest of the DAO behind you because I don't know what else to tell you.
We got Level Up Life has his hand raised here in the chat.
Mr. Liquidity Pools. Let's see. I will try to bring him
Could
up.
jump in. I think I could jump in on there.
Um, there you go, Mr. Level Up Life. We have invited you onto the stage. Please enlighten us.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it
Yes,
going, man?
Jimmy.
Hey, Claiborne, you think it's important? You think it would be worth it to touch bases on just the liquidity pool situation and maybe why we've kind of not moving forward with some
Uh,
of that liquidity pool stuff at this time?
yeah, so we actually touched on it a little bit earlier. You know, I was telling everybody that I did do the deep dive, and I shared some of my thoughts. But yeah, basically, like I put the whole topic kind of like on the back burner for the moment because it's gonna probably take a couple of weeks. But the team is going to update the site to more accurately display like what's actually happening. Essentially, like what's going on is from best I can tell, the site has never adjusted to like the 1% drop monthly that is coded into the LP rewards, so it seems like they're off about like 16% right now. But yeah, like I did spend like a week there talking to people like Level Up Life, some of the other, I don't know how many of them want to be discussed publicly, but you know, I spent some time talking with quite a few of the big liquidity providers and trying to figure out a game plan, you know, and it's interesting because like where I started off was 100% like we should never be paying any inflation to a pool without a SPS pair. And you know, I think to some extent I still feel like we should be moving more in that direction. But you know, I've also had to consider other opinions and other thoughts on the issue. And you know, I do think that like Level Up Life is somebody that's brought one of the things to my attention about how bad it would be to lose some of our deck pools and then have no way for people that are putting all of this deck into land to you know ever have a chance to move it out. So there's a lot to consider. Level Up Life, what do you think about like, well, I guess the current situation? What do you think about potentially opening up like new liquidity pools on other chains?
Yeah, so maybe I could just kind of like add to what you just said because I think this is very important because I think most people in the community, liquidity pools is a boring topic, especially if you're not someone who's providing liquidity for SPS airdrops. It might be something that's a little bit boring. And I think generally, it's just my gauge on the community is generally going to be looking at it going, hey, I think that there's too much SPS being paid to liquidity providers, and therefore any proposal that potentially comes out that lowers that inflation is something I'd probably vote on. And this is where I just want to kind of maybe just highlight a few things here that I think are important when making a decision when it comes to liquidity pools, and not just jumping to maybe some quick, I don't really care as long as it lowers inflation sort of approach. So I've been providing liquidity to the game since liquidity pools started day one. I was a couple years ago, and I've been in it ever since. Now, the way it was originally posted in the white paper is that those liquidity pool airdrops were supposed to be reduced by 1% a month. We found out later on, a couple months ago, I think on one of the town halls, which was fairly recent, that it was brought to our attention that the 1% reduction had not actually been coded in, and that what they were going to be doing was basically taking those 1%, going all the way back, maybe we really didn't know how long, and they were basically going to be adding all those 1% reductions all at one point in time here. What happened was, because I pay pretty close attention to this, one day I pretty much woke up and found that my hourly rewards had been reduced quite substantially. Maybe it's hard to tell exactly, but it was a very substantial hit. Because I pay attention so closely, I assumed that was the 1% hit that went into effect. There was no announcement. It was literally just went in overnight one night. Most people that are in liquidity pools may not even realize that that's actually what happened. But I was pretty much aware that that's probably what had happened, even though there was no announcement. So what then went into effect was I got very confused. It was a very confusing scenario because the APRs that were reflected on Splinterland's site hadn't been reduced, but yet my rewards had been reduced, and I got very confused. And I have a real life too, so I move on with real life and I get distracted. But then one day I decided to do some math, and what I did was just basically take my hourly rewards and multiply it, and then add in, basically I did some backwards math and realized that there was something wrong. And I got a little bit suspicious that the APRs on the website were not reflecting the real numbers. And I approached Jarvie about this because the only two places that really reflect liquidity pool rewards clearly is Peak Monsters has a page where you can check the amount of SPS that's being paid out in airdrops on Peak Monsters, and Splinterland's main page where you go to the liquidity pool rewards page. And I approached Jarvie about this because I was very suspicious that the amount of rewards that they were paying was actually not accurate now, because it was reflecting the original white paper airdrops, and it was not reflecting a 1% reduction, especially not the major hit that happened maybe a month or two ago when they decided to update the entire 1% that all the way going back months. And when I approached Jarvie about it, he said it had never been updated on Peak Monsters, and they were basically just pulling that information from Splinterlands, and it had never actually been updated. And so I brought this up to Claiborne because we had been in discussions about LP proposals, like removing DEC pools and this and that. And one of the things that Claiborne had proposed is a reduction of inflation. But it was a reduction of inflation on the original numbers, not the new numbers that we really don't even know what they are, to be honest with you. I still don't know what they are. And Claiborne, kind of agreed that it would be an absolute disaster to launch a proposal that gives people the illusion that we were reducing inflation when it had actually already been reduced by over 15 to 20%. Right? So imagine showing that we're paying out 5 million DEC or whatever, and it's actually already been reduced by 20%, which is like 1 million. So we're actually already reduced the original white paper numbers. That, if you look on Peak Monsters, is not accurate, right? If you add up all of the SPS that Peak Monsters is showing that we are actually paying out, you can actually take 20% off that number. So one thing I want to throw out here, and let me sum this up here so it doesn't go on this long rant, but basically let me make this point because I think this is an important point. Without any proposal that goes through at this point in time, these pools are already being reduced by 1%. So there is a reduction in place that reduces the liquidity pool provider rewards by 1% that goes into effect now. But the websites are not reflecting that. So for anybody that's not in LPs or in LPs or whatnot, now I'll throw one more little bit of information out there. I did get in contact with one of the biggest liquidity providers in the game, which is Crypto Eater, who is a very substantial liquidity provider. And I private messaged him and I said, bro, I don't think these numbers are right. Maybe you want to take a look. Crypto Manster, who's one of the biggest liquidity providers in the game, was actually under the influence that he was actually very confused at why his rewards had gone down, and actually thought that maybe they had gone down because of the proposal that allowed the DAO to take rewards. It was a proposal that had passed that allowed the DAO to get a piece of the rewards from the rewards pool. And he thought that's why his income had reduced, but he wasn't aware that they had actually added in the 1% reduction. So anyways, I'll end it there. But essentially what I think I want to make a point is that the liquidity pool rewards have already been substantially reduced. And I think if we can get the UI, and maybe Claiborne, maybe you can touch on that one more time and give us an idea of when you think that will be updated. But just so everybody's aware, you're going to wake up one day, if you care about liquidity pools at all, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to go look at the user interface and you're going to see those APYs get substantially hit. And that's because basically we're going to get a UI update all of a sudden that's going to reflect this reduction. Now, it's not going to affect, let me make this point, it's anybody that's a liquidity pool provider, it is not going to, you are not going to get a reduction in your rewards because that already happened. All we are going to get is the user interface is going to start reflecting the reduction that already happened. So again, I just want to reiterate, the hit to liquidity pool rewards has already taken place. I'm going to guesstimate it happened about 2 months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So that's already taken place. But you're going to see the APYs are going to get reduced on the website because it's going to reflect a lower number. So maybe if you look right now and you see that that pool is paying 25%, all of a sudden you may see it's going to be paying 20%. That's actually just a user interface update, and it's actually not. You're not actually getting less reward, less APY.
And this
I'll end it there.
Yeah, this is
very,
why...
very, very important. Very important. And how? So, and again, Claiborne, last thing I'll say here is, how could we write a proposal, right, that adds pools or even reduces pools or takes pools away when the information that everybody is going to be voting based on is actually not accurate, right?
Right.
If we say we're reducing,
I literally,
this would be a terrible.
Look, I get it. Like, we're just repeating the same thing at this point. I literally already shut down the discussion until we get accurate numbers. So, like, we're just reiterating the same thing.
Yeah, but again, just to be clear, like in transparency, I am a big liquidity provider, Claiborne, and I'm not sure. I think we talked. I'm not sure, Claiborne, if you're a big liquidity provider, but this is a very if anybody knows me, man, I am the guy that's always positive. This is not good. This type of stuff, and I know that this is the type of stuff that we're kind of Yabbit Matt came in to clean up. But man, this is a major fail, bro. Claiborne, we almost pushed out proposals, bro.
Yeah.
Imagine you pushed out a proposal. Imagine you pushed out a proposal that said we're reducing the inflation by 20%. And nobody knows that the inflation has already been reduced by 20%. Therefore, that proposal would have been a major fail.
Well, okay, so technically,
you know what I mean? And could have potentially passed.
That's not what would have happened, because I was basing it on the numbers on the site. So it would have probably been like a 4% reduction. But again, I agree it's a big enough issue that I literally put the conversation on halt until we get it fixed. So like I'm in agreement with you here. I don't think we want to be operating off of imperfect information. So I'm there with you. I agree. So that's why I literally shelved the conversation until we get it updated. I've talked to the team. My guess is maybe like a week or two. Hopefully we should be able to have it updated, and I'll stay on top of them with it. But yeah, I mean I get it. I'm fully aware it's an issue, and that's why I put the conversation on hold.
Yeah, Claiborne, bro, I appreciate it. Like, look, this is the type of stuff that honestly, Claiborne, if you were not hired to work for the DAO, these type of issues, bro, honestly, man, if I come to this realization, man, I probably don't, I just don't, I don't have the effort to go and rally the community around this change and contact Yabbit Matt directly and say that the APY needs, the user interface needs to be updated. I don't have that, bro, but this is the type of stuff that you being here is allowing us to not only clean up, get this thing is correct, move forward. You know what I'm saying. So like, look,
Oh,
I'm
man,
applauding you, bro. I've been, you know what I mean. Like, if you're not here, bro, this ain't getting addressed. Honestly,
man,
it's not, because I am not going to push it, man. I don't have time. I got a family and stuff like that. You know what I mean.
yeah.
But you being here is allowing us to push these important issues and get them resolved, bro. Because I know you've directly contacted Yabbit, and I know that this is going to get updated, and this is very important so that we can move forward with these liquidity pools and stuff like this.
Yeah, so that reminds me something else that I discovered that was already there, but clearly a lot of us missed it. And I reached out to Peak Monsters, and I think they've already fixed it. Splex I haven't heard back from, but we've been operating off the assumption that 5% of stake had to vote on a pre-proposal for it to go to a full vote. That is not the case. 5% has to vote in favor for it to go to a full proposal. So I'm reaching out to the pre-proposal sites, Peaked and Splex, to try to get that fixed. Uh, Asgarth is pretty quick. He seemed to get back to me yesterday, and he said it's already fixed. But I guess we'll find out if I try to go run the one market maker proposal. But yeah, so something for people to be aware of. And again, like, this is something that had passed months ago, but I guess like the sites like Peak Monster and Splex didn't like they updated to where it was 5%, but I guess they didn't understand the wording like I didn't understand it either, is it has to be 5% for. So just FYI, guys, if you see me like kind of like harping on go to vote for these pre-proposals, you flagging it no longer counts, or is not helping it to go to a full vote. So it doesn't hurt it either, because you can flag it with 100 million SPS, and as long as like 40 million votes yes, it's going to go to a full vote. So just FYI, the more you know, not knowing is half the battle, or something like that, right?
Nice.
But yeah,
You were saying before also about the importance of getting rid of these other DEC pools besides the DEC SPS pool in order to,
so
and there's the problem of DEC flooding the market.
well, yeah, so this is actually something that like I had talked to Level Up Life and Crypto Eater about, is like in my mind, I really don't think we should be incentivizing pools that circumvent the SPS burn.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think that the deck BUSD pool, which is now turning into a deck USDC pool, and the deck swap high pool, I firmly believe they're both profitable enough that we don't have to pay incentives on those pools anymore. That said, people like Level Up Life that are actually in these pools are going to probably have a different opinion, because it hurts their APR. But what I'm saying is, I think we have to be strategic, right? Like, we have to, like, if I don't think we're going to get a proposal passed that says increase inflation to LPs. I think it'd be much easier to get a proposal passed to cut it at this point. But what I would like to do is find places that we can more strategically use the inflation that we have, right? So like if we want to do something like open up a BTC pool, like a BTC SPS pool, maybe we move some of that inflation over there to where it'll incentivize new liquidity, or just find new ways to use the incentives we have, or if we can, maybe increase them a little bit, because this is something I touched on earlier. But guys, we are like literally less than 50% of where we should be as far as the inflation paying out to those pools goes. Now, there's two ways to look at that. Either we're not using enough, or we can basically pay out for twice as long. Like, so it's an interesting dynamic of how we want to approach or what we want to do with liquidity pools. But we have some options, and just like I was saying with Level Up Life there, we have to wait until the information that we have is verified and accurate, because like we were literally in discussions about how to make a proposal to chop up and rework the liquidity pools, and found out like at the 12th hour that we're operating with imperfect information. And that's not how you want to proceed on anything. Like, it was jarring enough to me to like literally halt the discussion, point blank, like just like after a week of like diving into this and working on it, I was just like, no, shut it down completely. We'll reassess when we get the new information. And I mean, like I'm in agreement with you there, Level Up Life. I don't think you ever want to make something like, or changes that drastic without full information. So just in full transparency, if you guys are wondering why that conversation got shut down, I made the choice to shut that down because I found out we didn't have perfect information. And
Do we know how long that will take to get perfect information?
Okay, so keep in mind, like, I was looking into a lot of these things, like with the like the USDC pool proposal that passed, and this situation, like, while they were trying to roll out land. So basically everything was kind of like we're in the middle of it, right? Like, like, land's coming out, rebellion's coming out next week.
Right.
So my guess is maybe 2 weeks, and I'm going to stay on top of it. Like, I think the main reason why the USDC pool switch happened today is because I had to go and be like, look, you guys, you realize, like, they're literally dropping support for BUSD in 2 weeks. Like, we can't just keep waiting on this. So
yeah,
like the urgency's there, but just as much as like I wanted to get fixed so that we can start making positive positive changes. Like, I don't think in the short term, like in the next 2 weeks, is going to drastically change anything if we don't mess with the LPs. So I say, let's just give it a little breather while they get the site updated, and then we can reassess.
Yeah,
I think maybe I could just throw my 2 cents in here regarding the DEC pool. So, like, I am a big DEC liquidity provider, but I really don't care about my personal APY or whether those pools stay or whatnot. I can have a perspective of what's good for what's maybe good for the game, and I don't really care, like, if the pool's there or not. I could move my funds around and I could target other pools or whatnot. What I think, though, is important, and this is not just my opinion, but as someone who does hold a lot of DEC, and from an investment standpoint, right, I'm holding a lot of DEC because I'm earning yield from it. I did speak with 2 other very big DEC whales, if you will, and there's a similar feeling. I had a similar feeling, and I wanted to ask a few other guys if I was the only one that thought that way, or if they thought the same way, and I found out that they were thinking similar. So this is just my word of advice: is big DEC holders, if you're holding $1,000 or $2,000 or a couple $1,000s worth of DEC, it's really not an issue. But when you start getting into, now we have land and there's land whales, and we're going to start asking land whales to not only hold a ton of DEC, but continue to buy more and stake more and add more cards and then stake more DEC for those cards. If that's the scenario, sending a message to someone who not only holds a lot of DEC, but then is being asked to buy substantially more, and then writing proposals that say, we don't think a lot of these DEC pools are important, we'll just keep one open, is a dangerous message, because everybody knows that if you hold a substantial amount of something and there's only a certain amount of liquidity for that, then it's not a matter of just being able to sell it, but then it takes days to sell, right? So, for example, if there's a couple $100,000 worth of DEC liquidity, and you have $100,000 worth of DEC, and you just wanted to sell because whatever, life, you get a disease in real life, and spinel is not important anymore, and you're leaving. I mean, it may take you a month to sell that DEC into that liquidity, and that's even if there's buy pressure. So what I think is important is that if you're going to remove DEC pools, maybe add some incentives to maybe restructure them. So, for example, I do think that the DEC DAI pool is dumb. The DEC DAI pool being over on Ethereum with the transaction fees and whatnot, and yes, volume, the data backs up the fact that it's a dumb liquidity pool. So maybe, yeah, do away with that. The one that's on BUSD, that one could go away too. Yeah, maybe even the Hive DEC pool is a bit of a stupid pool too. I was the largest liquidity provider in there for probably the last year, and it does feel a little bit dumb because you're pairing a cryptocurrency with a stable coin, which does feel a little bit dumb, right? You either want to be in crypto because it's a bear market, or you want to be in stable coins because you think it's a bear market, or you want to be in crypto in a bull market or whatever, and to be in both, it doesn't really feel right. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of pools that feel a little bit dumb, but maybe, for example, adding a USDC DEC pool to stablecoins on Hive. So swap USDC DEC, open up a pool on Hive. Let's bring some liquidity into Hive. Maybe someone has, there's people out in the ecosystem that have stable coins, and maybe they want to buy into Splinterlands, and so they move in their USDC, and they could buy DEC, and they could go play land, and they could buy land, and so having a direct on ramp, maybe that makes a little bit more sense. But I think if you're gonna send a message out there that says, we're gonna wipe out three DEC liquidity pools, maybe now, is there another DEC pool that might make sense? So you're sending now a message that's saying, look, we're not just gonna, because again, I think as a DEC holder, I don't want DEC to be a high score or a coupon that I can redeem for services and products and Splinterlands. Although that's cool, I do want my DEC to equal real dollars. I want them to be real money. And so if you remove liquidity pools, it feels a bit funny money now, right? Now it's just a coupon for the game, or like I said, it's redeemable for cards and stuff.
Well,
I want it to still equal dollars.
To SPS, like that SPS would be the only gateway then in and out of DEC, and that pool would be made a lot deeper than it is now.
So I think if you're going to remove DEC, and by the way, if you actually look at how much SPS inflation we're providing for these DEC pools, it's actually not that much. It's very small, especially when you compare to things like what we give away for ranked rewards and things like this. It's so insignificant. I think it's more so the fact that, and I think that's a misconception that people have, is that we're paying all this inflation for this stupid pool that doesn't have volume. I think it's a stupid pool, but I don't think we're paying a lot for it. So what I'm saying is that, can we, because, and again, by the way, it's actually reduced by 20%. So what we think it's even 20% less than that, right? And it's still insignificant, in my opinion. So again, I'm saying, like, yes, maybe we take that inflation and we add it to the SPS DEC pool, right? So that we're removing $300,000 worth of liquidity. Maybe we can add $300,000 worth of liquidity to the DEC SPS pool. I think that's fine.
Yeah,
I personally don't have a problem, but I know, like, for example, I've talked to some people, big liquidity providers, and they were like, yeah, I don't like the idea of removing DEC liquidity. Again, we may not care about the pools that are out there. I think the 3 pools are dumb, but I don't like the idea of less liquidity, right? And I think all 3 of those pools add up to almost $1 million. So I would hate to see us lose $1 million worth of liquidity pools and then not add any more DEC liquidity.
Yeah, I would be talking about transferring value, not just removing, that value, but switching it over to DEC SPS.
So let me tell you what one of the biggest concerns is, and this, like, I'll tell you, like, this is one of my biggest concerns, but it's also one that I hear from a lot of other people. When you have pools that are paying 2-3 times percent, or 2 or 3 times the APR percent that you get for staking SPS. It starts to be like, well, why am I staking SPS, right? Like, especially when we look at a pool like the Swap Hive voucher pool, right? Like, this is the one that, like, has irked me to no end, because it's like the volume doesn't even come close to justifying what we're paying out on it. Like, even with the numbers being off, it's just like, it's mind blowing to me that you can make like 3 to 4x the APR with no exposure to DEC, no exposure to SPS. Like it's just like how does that make sense whenever you want people to stake SPS? It's like to me that's where the big concerns come in. It's like you don't have the same lockup period that we have whenever we stake our SPS, and you also don't even have to have exposure to SPS. Like why would we be paying out more SPS inflation to people for not staking SPS than we are to people that are actually staking SPS?
I think the big thing that's changing now, Claiborne, is, and we have never done this before, is that we never actually had a use case for DEC as a stablecoin. So we are calling DEC a stablecoin. I'm not sure if that's correct, but if we're going to call DEC a stablecoin, right? And we've never had a use case. DEC was always used for goods and services in the game, and when it was under its peg, you would buy it because you would get a discount on those goods and services. Okay, that's much different than a stable coin, right? There was no reason to have DEC at $1 at peg. This is one reason why we really had a hard time getting DEC to peg until we pushed land hard. Now it's at peg because DEC has a use case at $1 as a stable coin, right? And so it now you could hold it, and it's supposed to be worth $1, and you're supposed to stake it on land, and it's supposed to be worth $1, right? You're not just holding DEC because you can redeem it for goods and services. You're now holding it because you monetize land using it. The land game, you use DEC as a stable coin, as $1. So I think this is a very important thing now. Do we want DEC to be a stable coin? Do we want to send that message to the community that DEC is a stable coin and that it's worth $1? Or do we just want to say, hey, you hold it at your own risk, and worst case scenario, you'll be able to buy some stuff from the game. You'll be able to buy cards and stuff like this, but it may not be a stable coin. You may only get 80 cents on a dollar. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I think is dangerous now. We need liquidity because we're calling it a stable coin, right? And if you want to just say it's redeemable for SPS, if that's the route we're going, right? If that's what the community votes for, I mean, that's fine. But I think it's very scary for big land whales to be holding $100,000 or $150,000 worth of this DEC that the community is saying, it may not be $1. It may not hold at $1.
Like
See what I'm saying?
I get that side of things, but like that's kind of like completely dismissing what I'm saying here, right? Like, if I want to go stake SPS right now to get like a roughly 15% APR for staking my SPS, and maybe I get some battle rewards too. Like let's say, I don't know, hypothetically, like everything's going, hunky dory. Maybe I'm getting like 25-30% somehow with like some really good chess draws. Like, do you not think it's concerning that you can have a pool with a higher APR with no lockup and no exposure to SPS, but we're paying more SPS inflation for that? Like, that? Do you get?
I think the question is, what is liquidity worth? Does the community think that it's worth paying some SPS inflation to have some DEC stablecoin liquidity? If not, then remove it. But I think I would also challenge people to go actually look once the APY is fixed, to actually go do some math, see like how much we actually do pay. I think most people in here right now probably don't know what that amount is. How much SPS are we actually paying out for? For example, DEC die pool right now has about $300,000 worth of liquidity, right? That's not nothing. Is it worth paying, 2,000 SPS or 3,000 SPS a day in inflation for $300,000 worth of liquidity? Is it worth it? If not, remove it. I'm just saying that it's much different if you're going to have a stable coin. For example, imagine if you have a stable coin and you can go over to Hive and you could swap it for USDC, DAI, BUSD, USDC, all these other stable coins. You're saying one DEC is worth $1. If you remove all those pools and say, well, now it's just redeemable, you could swap it for SPS, right? It's not, you know what I mean? It's a different message you're sending, right? Do you want it to look like a stable coin? Do you want it to feel like it's worth $1? Or do you just want to say you could swap it for this much SPS, right? It's worth 1,000 SPS, worth 500 SPS.
is the goal to have SPS be the only gateway for DEC though? Isn't that part of the whole the flywheel mentality?
Well, that's the thing. Like we have to have these discussions and figure it all out. And this probably, I don't know if this is the best forum for it, right? Like maybe we just have to get the discussion back open once we get more accurate information on the website. I think that's the best bet. Like I said, I literally put this on pause because I feel like we don't have accurate information to even be really having this discussion. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions for people to think about, right? And I'm not saying we have to get rid of LPs, but I don't even say we have to cut inflation. I just think we have to be smart about how we're doing these things and making sure that we're basically approaching this stuff in a way that makes sense, right? Like I said, to me, it's really absurd that I would have to go and lock up my SPS to where I can't sell it for a month, but you can go and get more APR with no exposure to SPS right now. Like so that means like if the price of SPS starts going up, I've got to wait a month to like if I want to sell it, I can sell like a fourth every week for a month, or somebody could just be sitting in a SPS deck pool and say, hey, look, the price of SPS went up today. Maybe I'll just go pull my SPS out and sell it instantly. It's yeah, yeah,
Wait,
and look,
that
like
yeah, but wait,
Azercon,
a
hold
DEC
on,
a
hold
DEC
on,
dipole doesn't have
hold on.
SPS.
As Azercon, it is an opportunity cost, but who's it an opportunity cost for? If you're getting a higher APR and you're not having that staking period, who has the opportunity cost?
Hey, Claiborne, that just a little bit of pushback. What you said, if someone's in a DEC dipole, right, and they're not exposed to SPS and SPS pumps, they have no exposure to the pump. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that totally made sense.
No, but they're earning more SPS without exposure than we are with the exposure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. So if SPS pumps, a person that's in a stablecoin pool doesn't benefit from the pump. Sure, they're getting hourly SPS, but it's very small compared to someone who's got a huge stack of SPS. For example, if I'm in an SPS DEC pool and SPS pumps, well, now I could pull my liquidity out and dump the SPS. But if I'm not exposed to SPS, for example, if you put in a DEC USDC pool and incentivize it with SPS, though that person is not exposed to SPS at all. I think that's just showing support for DEC as a stable coin that says your DEC is worth $1. It is not just a coupon. It is not just redeemable for goods and services. It is not just a claim on some SPS. It is a stable coin. I don't know if that's what we want. I'm just saying that I've talked to whales and they would like their DEC to be worth $1. And they would like to know that there's liquidity available that proves that DEC is worth $1 or it's worth 95 cents. And that it's not just worth, goods and services or a claim on some SPS. That's the only point I'm trying to make, right? If someone drops 50 grand in the game for their region so that they can go play their region, right? I think those people, I'm just saying, I have talked to a couple whales. They want that 50 grand of DEC to be worth 50 grand, right? Maybe give or take, right? 94 cents, 95 cents. It's going to bounce between. But none of those people want their DEC. None of those people want their 50 grand to be worth 10 grand or $50,000 worth of goods and services, $50,000 worth of rebellion cards, $50,000 worth of, you get what I'm saying? That's the only thing I'm saying is that it would be nice to send a message to DEC holders that their DEC is redeemable for stable coins. It is redeemable when you compare it to other things that are $1 in the crypto space, that DEC is worth dollars, not just a certain amount of SPS or rebellion cards, or whatever other thing that the company is selling.
Yeah.
That's the only. I'm just saying that's the feedback I'm getting. And if you start removing or rearranging those DEC pools, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's
but again, I still say like the biggest like WTF we have right now is the Swamp Hive voucher pool. Like it has no exposure to deck. It has no exposure to SPS, and it is the highest APR in our entire ecosystem. It's just things like that. I feel like we have to more strategically utilize these things, right? Like I get that you have to have pulls for deck to trade against. I get all of that, but again, I think we have to really like look at and consider, and again, I've agreed, put the conversation on hold until we get accurate information, but I think we have to at least consider, like, at what point does it get ridiculous to be paying, astronomically higher APR for a pool with like no staking requirements than for people that are locked into SPS for a month? But again, we're just going to go in circles here. Let's wait till we get accurate information. We'll open up the thread again and we'll go from there. But yeah, I guess we're kind of going on like 2 hours here, so maybe we'll wrap it up for the evening. And thank you to Jimmy for joining. Thank you to Level Up Life for coming in, and hopefully we got a lot of food for thought here, guys. Make sure to check out the draft proposal suggestion thread. Like I said, I put out an idea for how we could maybe kind of like try to host a game jam. We got the USDC deck pool switched over today, and I will let you guys know as soon as we get more accurate information about the LP inflation rates, and we can start those conversations again and figure out what we want to do. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming out, and have a good evening.
Thanks, Clay.